Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver will hit $20 in 2 months. We're gonna bet the bank on it. This is from an expert who correctly called $1,500 gold. But does that mean he's right here? Let's explore. This comes to us from Kitco from an interview with a gentleman, E.B. Tucker, who's a director of Metal Royalty and Streaming, which is a little different outfit than what you normally see with a lot of the mining companies and the like out there. He doubled down on his bet earlier this year that gold would eventually rise to $1,500. That was back in February when he made that prediction. And so that gives him a little bit of validity. However, I don't know. He's betting that silver will hit $20 in the next 2 months. Now, he may be right. He is saying, and according to the quote from him, right now, we want to trade silver up to $20. We think gold is going to stabilize at $1,500, and we see silver moving to $20. So that's a 12% move we think we can capture in the next probably 8 weeks. We see that as pretty much a certainty, and we're willing to bet on it. And Tucker told Kitco News at the sidelines of the Denver Gold Forum. Now, his reasoning behind it is quite interesting, and I think just in a few sentences that he talked about this as to the reasons why, I want to kind of challenge just a little bit. Not that he necessarily will be wrong, but I think that his explanation, I believe, could potentially lead. There's so many different factors that could come into play that may mean it may not occur. So the first one is that he's saying that back in 2016, when we saw a similar increase in prices, it was the junior mining stocks that pushed it. That price upward. Of course, there's other factors other than mining stocks that move the precious metal prices, as we all know. So that's the first kind of hole there in the theory. And he's saying that the junior mining stocks were the pushers of gold and silver both going up. And this time around, that's a GDXJ over the GDX. And this time around, it's the inverse. So the gold outperformed silver, which means, in his view, that there was not speculation in the markets. It was a revaluation of gold, which leaves room for silver to make a move up in price. And so, with that being said, he sees that the gold to silver ratio will eventually tighten up to 75-1, which he sees as a conservative ratio. And it is a conservative ratio compared to history. When the average gold to silver ratio that we've seen over the last, 100 years or so, or at least since they stopped, fixing the price of gold, it's been about 60 to 65-1. So because it's a conservative ratio and because of the revaluation, and it leaves room for silver to move upwards, he is speculating, and I call it speculation as a prediction, that silver will play catch up, in his words. What does that mean? This metal is quite intriguing. It has been low for quite a while, and it has not performed as well as many of us would like to it, and especially in comparison to gold. But the fact that he called gold as being in a period of revaluation as opposed to speculation, considering how quickly it moved up, he's now saying that at least for the next 2 months, or at least until the end of the year, he's saying that gold is going to hold relatively steady around $1,500, and that next year we will see it break through the record highs. So 2020 will be the breakout period for gold, but silver will play catch up. Now, I think he's making a safe prediction with silver being $20 an ounce in 2 months, based off of, because he sees it as sort of a conservative prediction. And it is a conservative prediction. I don't think it's out of the ordinary, especially considering where we have seen gold and silver in their prices silver came up from essentially $14, $15 up pretty much $3 over pretty much kind of the same period of time before. So it would not be unrealistic to think that it could continue to rise. Right now, gold, at least as of the recording of this video before the markets open in Asia, gold is well above that $1,500 level, and silver is just below the $18 level. Does have room to move. But the thing is that this metal, silver, I believe the one thing that I would challenge his prediction on is that silver, especially more than ever, is seen as a commodity as much, if not more so, than as a monetary metal or a hedge. Hence why it's so volatile in the movements, because we've seen the price movements. If you watch the data, whenever there's an increase in the prices of gold, silver increases even more and outperforms gold on a percentage basis. Whenever there's a decrease in gold prices, silver loses a lot more. And so there's more volatility in that space with silver. So because of that factor, I believe that, yes, there is room for silver to tighten up that ratio. I believe it will, but I don't necessarily think that it will get to 75-1. I think that, if anything, if it does get to $20, I think we'll see gold move up in tandem, at least to some point. I believe, maybe 1525, 1550. We'll see how that plays out, but I don't think we'll get the ratio back down to 75-1 there. Because this revaluation period, he says it's highly unusual, but these are unusual times, especially the way how silver is viewed. And I really believe we won't see that translate to the type of thing he's talking about until we see the numbers from the Silver Institute or any other agency about how much is being invested in the physical space of silver. Right now, it's pretty low numbers, and I think that is what will drive that ratio to tighten up a bit. So we shall see. He could be right. He was proved right before when he made that call about $1,500 gold back in February. But just because somebody made a call at one particular point in time and was right about it does not necessarily mean that his prediction on $20 silver in 2 months will be true. I'm not saying it won't, but I say that any kind of these big calls or predictions, and even though this one is not out of the realm of possibility by any stretch, it very well could happen, given the past couple of months here we've seen in the markets. However, bold calls like this take for a grain of salt. That includes me or anybody else. I just posted a video very recently about $844 silver. Should it be that, based off the U.S. debt clock? People can use a lot of different reasoning to justify why the precious metals should be a certain price. Obviously, manipulation is at play to some degree. We can't ignore that. However, we shan't use that as an excuse to oversell the idea that silver is going to go to this ridiculously high number, or even back to the what we consider normalcy. 60-65-1 ratio. I believe that if the ratio does tighten up very quickly, it'll be a speculative play in the ETFs. But we'll see where all this goes and where it heads. But very interesting indeed. I do like to kind of look at these from time to time. I do typically ignore some of the prognostication that's going on out there and some of these experts, but I do find that sometimes it's good to kind of see what they're saying, either to pick it apart or to validate or to agree with it, or one way or the other. I like to kind of keep an even level on it. And I've been accused in a recent video about talking down on silver, and it could be, I am sorry if it's coming across that way. I definitely do not mean to do so, because I am a huge fan of silver, and I believe in it as a wealth preserver. It is a strong wealth preserver, but there are times in its history and given its volatility, where if you are banking on a short-term hold on the metal, where you could lose your shirt in terms of the real monetary value of your silver, or monetary price of your silver, because there's times when the price goes so low that it's below the level of inflation averaged out. But then there are other times where it goes above. We have to think middle of the road in this particular case, and only expect silver to preserve our wealth in the long term. So that's kind of where I fall in line with silver. Holding it in some ways can be risky, especially if you need to sell it or want to sell it or move on with it. But that's why I encourage people to stack and hold the precious metal. And why I also strongly consider folks look into diversifying their portfolios with gold. Post your thoughts below. Very interesting indeed. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to y'all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.